All right, so we have a couple things to go over. Some spicy stuff happened this week. Hope you guys are ready for a little security drama and a little echo, just a little echo. Get rid of the echo. I hope you guys' weekend has gone well so far, and I hope you're ready for another week. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. We'll get into the news. Like usual, Sunday's stream, we cover the news. We go over the different things that are going on in the world, and we talk about it just a little. So that's what we're going to do today. Now, before we get into, security, we usually cover security first, most important topic, right? But there's something that's more important, and a completely non-biased study came out that we must talk about first. So let's talk about how the Pentagon study finds no signs of alien life in reported UFO sightings going back decades. Now, I am sure that the Pentagon has nothing to hide, and they're not the people that we were worried about hiding alien life from us. So this definitely makes me feel at ease that there are no USOs. So that was super important, and I found hilarious. So I found that it was like a 75-page document that was released to the public, and that we wasted a lot of money on this. Okay. But it's out there. No aliens. Several places have covered this. Just in case you were wondering, we're good. 63 page unclassified document. So no sightings of aliens. All right, we can get into the real news from now. I did actually have one topic I wanted to talk about before security, because it was one that I became aware of, and I don't have a good solution for us to follow. I don't have what you should do next because of this. I can tell you that I hope that manufacturers start to adopt display ports on things like TVs more, and game consoles and entertainment systems. That's the best I can say, but those would be the manufacturers that we have to ask to do that. And maybe we can find TVs and things that do that to help push that as a standard. And I know some people dislike the DisplayPort connector, but as much as HDMI. But this latest news is kind of upsetting to me. The HDMI forums, the whole thing is to protect HDMI and make it as good as possible, which then it requires royalties, every HDMI port out there. Well, AMD wanted to incorporate parts of the HDMI 2.1 spec into its open source Linux driver. And it's a member of the HDMI forum. It actually pays royalties for every HDMI port on its thing. And this was to bring better Linux support, because if you're using an AMD Radeon card, you actually can't get 4K 120. There's a couple of the specs that you can't actually achieve via their HDMI, because the HDMI forum does not allow for open source. Now, interesting note here, this only affects AMD because both Intel and NVIDIA have unique workarounds for this. Intel specifically, their workaround for this is actually having a separate chip that translates, so that the open source code never actually has to touch HDMI spec, because it has a translation chip that's embedded in the thing. I couldn't find information on how NVIDIA gets around this, but NVIDIA also gets around it, probably also a chip or something like that. Now, again, what can you do as a consumer? There's not a whole lot we can do, again, other than trying to buy, but your Xbox, your TV, your PlayStation, those come with HDMI. Again, I'd like to start seeing better support for other alternatives, but it will be a long road. It will be a long road, and this is sad. You can also voice your complaint. You know, if enough people complain, hopefully something happens. But anyways, let's jump into security. The first thing in security is a little bit of a dumpster fire, just a little bit of a dumpster fire. If you remember right, 2 weeks ago, I reported about some vulnerabilities in TeamCity. Just one vulnerability about authentication. And I mean, it was a pretty big deal, but it was patchable, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Not a big deal. It happens. Well, it turns out there is yet another vulnerability, two CVEs found by Rapid7, and they released their standard things. Now, if you go through here and look through this, the problem that came out of this was not that there was vulnerabilities, but it was the lack of a coordinated release. So what JetBrains did, unlike most other people, instead of going with a coordinated release, they actually patched and released the fixes. They patched and released the fixes kind of silently and hidden instead of releasing. Usually there's a coordinated release where Rapid7 and JetBrains would do a release together. Thank you so much for following. That sound took me by surprise. That's our new follow sound. That's pretty fantastic. Okay. I probably need to turn those off during the news. But I need to, you know what? That's another thing we need to do. We need to put those into a queue so we can turn them off and then play the queue. That's another thing for us to work on. Yeah, that was the old, we updated that yesterday. We pushed that out yesterday, the old modem sound. Okay, sorry, that distracted me. That was good. Okay. So anyways, what happened was Rapid7 found these vulnerabilities. They actually talked to JetBrains about it, and then and they said that they wanted to do a coordinated release. And we'll get into why coordinated release. But JetBrains decided they didn't want to do that and basically released their own. Now, JetBrains basically went radio silent and released the patch themselves silently without actually even really making it known. And this is actually a pretty serious patch. You know what? First off, right now, if you're running TeamCity, go patch. Go patch right now. Because if you haven't, this is very serious. This will allow you to take over your infrastructure without authentication. So pretty serious. So go patch. Go patch right now. After you've patched, come back, watch the VOD. So the thing is, they didn't do the coordinated release, and you know, I'm gonna leave this link to you. The reason people want a coordinated release is for a couple reasons. If you release a silent patch that nobody knows they need to patch, then you hit fewer people. Unless you're all auto patching, which a lot of enterprises are not auto patching. Unless you're auto patching, then it doesn't help that you release the patch. Until the announcement is made anyhow, it doesn't actually make people more secure just because you released a patch. And then, so on top of that, you hurt the if you do a coordinated across a bunch of groups, you can reach the most number of people instead of piecemealing it. So the idea is, you know, kind of a shock and awe type of thing. So anyways, I'm going to give you guys this. This is just Rapid7's harm of a silent patches. You can read it. It's not super long. And basically it's just trying to help people get patched. So anyways, that was the big deal. That was the big deal. We had some more stuff that happened in security. If you're wanting to be in the know, I'm trying to use my keyboard to. Oops. Yeah. I got a new keyboard. It's a little... All right. So Russian hackers did breach key Microsoft systems. This seems like old news, but it's actually new news. So Russian state-backed hackers did gain access to Microsoft's core software systems, and a hack first disclosed in January. So we actually talked about this back in January. But it was more rumor than anything else at the time, is exactly what happened. Microsoft has released more details on who, what, why, and when that happened. So if you're interested, you can go look that up. All right. So the top U.S. cybersecurity agency hacked and forced to take some systems offline. So another hack that happened this a week and a half ago, I think it was. I think it was at the end of February. Let's see. Yeah, February 25th. Yeah. No. That's when the picture was taken. I think it was last week, but we'll move on with it as it is. So we had another hack. Now, the CISA, which is the group that got hacked, said that their operations haven't been affected. It was limited to 2 systems that they took offline, and have already been replaced at this point. So they're back online and going. I wanted to bring this up because it doesn't affect anybody, but I wanted to state that if the CISA was hacked, and I'm not saying they're perfect by any means. They're a federal agency, so they're probably less than perfect. There's probably private agencies that are but private things that are better. But if the CISA got hacked and you're a small team, it's going to happen. And this is why you need to be prepared, and you need to have layers of security. Even here, it was limited to just a few systems. Just because one system in their system got hacked doesn't mean all of theirs got all of their systems got hacked. And so this is why the layers of security is so important, and just trying to be security minded. If it can happen to these guys, it can happen to you, and you need to be prepared for it. I know I harp on that, but that's the truth of the matter. It's 2024. All right. This one is another little bit of drama that I thought would be fun to cover. So the NIST, it's one, we look at it for CVEs. They do a bunch of different things. It's another federal agency. It's the National Institute of Standards and Technology. They do the CVE databases and stuff like that. So we've had some experience here on the channel with the NIST, but there was an interesting thing that came about is the NIST staffers revolt against expected appointment of effective altruist AI researcher. Now, this was the first time I had heard of an effective altruist, and I had to actually go look it up because I actually didn't know. It sounds good to have a NIST staffer be an altruist because this seems good to me. But basically, some people worry that that effective altruists will be too timid with AI. Basically, they will be too restrictive and not push AI to its best potential. I'm paraphrasing, so don't hold. But that's what I have understood at this point. And that's what they're worried about because they want to move science forward at the NIST. And they're worried that this person is going to basically, stop it way too fast. So we'll see. The interesting part here is that the NIST doesn't really have the administrative power to stop those things. They make standards and they try to push people to use those standards, but they have no real enforcement of them. So I don't think that this appointment could anyways. But anyways, there's quite a bit of drama about it. I'm going to actually release this article to you guys if you guys want to check it out. It has a bunch of links to the actual the different articles. So I think that's actually a nice article because it allows you to read where you want, and you guys can go and look it up. Now, the effective altruists, interestingly enough, have ties to what's his face, Sam Bankman Fried. I don't know his last name. That guy. You guys know who I'm talking about. There's that. There's that. I don't know if that makes it better or worse. Depends on your peer view. Can I go to the next? No, I can't. Okay, we'll click. All right, I don't know. That's not doing what I thought it was. Okay. Another one that you might actually be interested in and might actually affect you is hackers did abuse QEMU to covertly tunnel network traffic through cyber attacks. Now, what is QEMU and why might it affect you? So you all probably know of KVM, but QEMU goes right hand in hand with KVM and is one of the reasons that you can run things like a ARM server on a AMD 64 server, because it allows you to do that translation through protocols and APIs. So it's used in a lot of places. I actually use QEMU in GitHub Actions even to allow me to do builds for different platforms, different architectures. You can use it with Docker to build a Docker container for an ARM 64 or AMD for an ARM64 on an AMD processor, if you like. So it's really powerful and used quite prevalently through the industry. So malicious actors were actually abusing this hypervisor or QEMU to tunnel into large companies. So that's something to be careful about. Now, there was a patch. So again, the solution here is to patch if you haven't. But yes, that is out there. And that was it for security. Did you guys see anything else in security? Anything else? All right. So we're going to cover AI. AI had some interesting things. Some researchers jailbroke some AIs. That was pretty interesting. There was a huge firestorm. That's what I'm going to call it. A lot of drama between Midjourney and Stability AI. Absolutely huge infighting between the DALL-E and OpenAI. So DALL-E by OpenAI and Midjourney. Those are probably the two biggest image generators. And boy, did they go at it this week. There's still an open investigation into what caused one of the things. Now, we'll get into it. We'll get into it. And then we're also going to talk about how you know that your AI chatbot is bad. We'll talk about that too. All right. Let's talk about the first thing. Researchers jailbreak AI chatbots with ASCII art. So this is a new way to jailbreak your AI. If it's not giving you what you want, well, sometimes you can just ask it with ASCII art. And this has been known to now work on ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and Llama 2. And basically gives you correct answers. So a lot of these things have RAGs and other things in place to protect users from themselves and to make sure that their systems aren't giving information that they don't want on their systems. Seems fair. Well, there's always been this cat and mouse game of researchers and other people finding out ways to get around that, and ASCII art is the latest in the ways of getting around how to get the AIs to give you information that the creators don't want you to get. And it works very well, I guess. It works very well. I would have never thought about this, but there you go. Don't use it. Don't use this information that I'm giving you. But it's out there. All right, let's move on. Here we go. This is the real drama here. Midjourney accuses Stability AI of image theft and bans its employees. That's an interesting thing. Now, you would think, well, they could just generate their own images, but what they wanted and what they supposedly stole was the correlation between what images were generated based off of what prompts were asked. Now, again, they could have just made their own, but they probably were looking for a very large data set, so they were looking for a lot. Now, again, the accusations are unfounded at this point. Again, it's Midjourney accusing Stability AI of this, but there was a large break-in, and interestingly enough, there is both Stability AI said that the leader of Stability AI said that that he would do whatever to help assist Midjourney in finding out who did it, because the people that broke into the Midjourney's system actually caused about 24 hours of downtime. So there was actually a very major break-in at Midjourney. Now, whether it was Stability AI, whether it was Stability AI's employees acting on a rogue, we don't know yet. Again, obviously Midjourney does have something to think that it is Stability AI or Stability AI employees, and at this point, all Stability AI employees have been banned from the Midjourney platform. So again, I will hopefully let you guys know if I see more out of this, but yeah, that happened. That happened. Now, some of you are probably wondering, how do I know if my AI chatbot is a piece of trash? And the real answer to this question is, does another chatbot come in and fill the spot of your chatbot? And if it does, maybe your chatbot is hot garbage. I don't know. GitHub Copilot Chat is now in JetBrains. JetBrains did release their own AI-assisted chatbot, which has had huge claims of being just utter trash. Now, I haven't had the chance to use it myself because I don't have a JetBrains paid account, so there was no way for me to actually validate this myself. So I haven't had the chance of using it. But there is a solution for all of you. GitHub Copilot, which is probably the best one that I've tested in all of my testing. We've tested a bunch here on stream, has been the best one so far with the most consistent results. I'm not going to say good, but it has been the best. If you're going to leverage one, this would be the one that I would leverage. So it is now in private beta that you can use Copilot Chat. So Copilot Chat is the thing that allows you to ask questions, but specifically about certain spots in your code. It's really powerful that way. It's actually one of my favorite features of it that originally was only found in Kodi, where you could ask it about specific files or about specific functions or things like that. And that made Kodi really unique. And GitHub Copilot just made that feature, I want to say like 3 or 4 months ago, generally available. And it's actually pretty good. I like it. I like it. And the last thing that we have, Grayskull. Grayskull is the new dev boards made by Trends. I actually practiced this before this because I knew I was going to. TensTorrent is I think how that you pronounce this is TensTorrent, but I could be 100% wrong. So these are new dev cards made by TensTorrent. The leader of TensTorrent, if you guys didn't know, was the guy behind where are my notes when I need it? So he did the AMD EPYC, I believe. That when AMD went to the architecture for EPYC, I believe he was behind that. And he had one other major accomplishment that I did look up. So he's done quite a bit, is the idea. And you can go look it up and verify. Done quite a bit. And Grayskull or TensTorrent is basically a new company that looks to revolutionize the AI chips. So these are AI, you could think of them as AI GPUs, but they're not GPUs at all. They're just designed to handle AI workloads. And they take a very distinct approach to it. Now, I'm assuming these cards are not great. Generally, the very first dev editions of anything are not great. They don't even have, to my knowledge, any sort of heatsink or anything like that on that. So it's going to be up to you to try to cool these things as well. But I'm actually really interested in how they work, how well they work. Now, noticeably, I looked it up because they talk a lot about the different cores and how many cores. You know, this has 120 cores. Yeah, 120 cores that work at 1.2 gigahertz. They're at the 2 nanometer, if you want to know. And this one operates at 200 watts, and this one operates at 75 watts, I believe. The interesting thing here is that it only has 8 gigabytes of memory. Now, I'm wondering if this is because it operates with the CPU memory a little bit more, because they do state that your system requirements are 64 gigabytes at the minimum for your PC. So I'm interested in understanding these more, but they're to serve AI models. So I'm tentatively excited. I'm watching this stuff for you all. They're not even that expensive. Oh, the other interesting note is that they're on the RISC-V platform, which is really cool. That's really cool. It's built on top of RISC-V. That's awesome. And did I say grayscale? I might have said grayscale. It's grayskull. If I said grayscale, I'm super sorry. They should have like a grayscale skull. That's Don't use me for advertising. All right. That was it for AI. Did you guys see anything else in AI? Our next section is open source. We actually had some really interesting things happen in open source. I kind of put these in the order that I found them interesting. Probably not the order most people will find them interesting in. Yeah. We'll see. So let's talk about a little open source news. The first thing that is something we've talked about. We've talked about package management in Kubernetes. And when you think of package management in Kubernetes, you think Helm. Now, we've had discussions about why people like or dislike Helm, and I think it really is at the root of the issue, is you either like Helm or you don't like Helm because it either solves your problem or it doesn't, for better or for worse. It has, things that it does well and things that it doesn't do well, and if you hit those things that it doesn't do well, it doesn't do them well. And then you're kind of forced to use the other alternatives on top of Helm, and it cascades and just adds complexity in the end. So I'm kind of excited about this, tentatively excited about this. I have not used it, so do not take this. It's just something I saw. But Glass Cube, which again, glass is very fragile and very brittle, so I'm not sure it was a great name. But Glass Cube version 0.0.1 technical preview has been released. If you're asking, what is Glass Cube? It is the missing package manager for Kubernetes. Now, again, I don't know. I'm not sitting here and telling you that this solves the problem better or not. but I'm interested in seeing another person's take on it, another team's take on it, seeing how they solve the problem differently. It's a hard problem. It's a hard problem to solve and solve well. So I'm excited to see this. I'm excited to see what they've done differently and their take on it. Now, it is an open source platform, so you can go ahead and check out the code if you'd like. It's in our favorite, third or fourth favorite language, Go. And yeah, go give it a check. It's a technical preview. I wouldn't expect it to be well-rounded. I'd expect there to be rough edges. I wouldn't judge it on having rough edges at this point. Again, it's a super technical preview, but I'm excited about it. I'm excited about it. So if you're excited about it, go give it a check. It's Glasscube. You know what? This is their announcement thing. Announcement blog post. So it's cool. It's interesting. I'm excited to see it in the future. You know, maybe one of these streams we can install it in a kind cluster and play around with it, see how it operates and stuff. If you guys would be interested in that, happy to do that. Happy to do that. Next up, Pacman. Pacman, the long neglected package manager of Arch, has been upgraded. Now, Pacman is notoriously the thing that people dislike the most, myself included, of using Arch. I use Arch, by the way. And it's finally gotten a 6.1 release with cache server support. So there's these aren't user interface upgrades, but the cache server support is a welcome upgrade. And hopefully we see more upgrades in the future, because I know that it's been a long time since it's been upgraded. I personally use Yay, but I mean, it's obviously on top of Pacman repositories and everything. So anyways, it's nice to see it starting to get updated again. You need to do some Kate's build this week, so I'm curious as what problem it's trying to solve. I mean, as far as I got through reading what I got through, Glasscube is just trying to basically do the same thing as Helm, be a package manager. You could almost think of it as, you know, I generally think of Helm as a package manager for Kubernetes. Not everybody sees it that way, as you have like different repositories that you can install, and then you can install stuff from them. It's very much like an apt repository. Anyways, that's what I see Glassdoor trying to be, or Glasscube, not Glassdoor, my goodness. Glasscube trying to be. Again, basically you can install a remote repository, and then from that repository you can click install. I would assume that when you clicked on the Kubernetes dashboard install, there would be options for you to configure it how you'd like. That's my assumption. I don't know yet. Like I said, I'm interested in seeing how it's managed. I'm also interested to see, like, obviously they've pushed like it has this UI, but I want to see that user experience without the UI, because a lot of these things I want to drive through like pipelines and things like that. So I want to see how it manages those types of things. Another interesting detail that would be interesting to know is how does it manage the stuff on Kubernetes? Classically, if you think of Helm used to have Tiller that ran on the server and managed everything, and there was a lot of problems with that. So do they do approach like that? Or have they gone some way, like learn from Helm's mistakes already? So again, super interested to see their take on it and understand, you know, exactly how they're solving it and what makes them unique. I'm sure that they didn't just implement another Helm with a UI. Hopefully. All right. Let's go on with open source. Open sourcing open house. I mean, it's an open house already. It's in the name. This has been long in the making. A control plane for managing tables in a data lakehouse. So, again, I haven't gotten to use this. I'm just announcing the cutting edge news. But last year we unveiled Open House, a control plane that gives end users an interface with managed tables in our open source data lakehouse deployments. Today we're excited to open source Open House. You know, it almost feels like They designed it to be open for everybody to use and contribute to. So I assume that from this point here, from last year to this point right now, that there was a lot of work being done to make it so that it wasn't just used for them. You know, a lot of the times when you make a piece of software, you don't make it as configurable and support all the things that people would need to actually leverage it. You know, you can make a project open source, but unless if you make it configurable and supportive to other ways people would want to use it, then it's really, you made a tool for yourself that other people can't really leverage. And so I'm guessing they've done quite a bit of work to make it actually open source. So this is cool. I know we talk a lot about databases. You know, there's several ones we need to try out and different ones. I know that we've talked about ClickHouse and some of those. So maybe we'll have to do a Saturday stream on databases where we have some of these installed and just leverage them and learn. So further in industry open source news, OpenSUSE is now experimenting with systemd boot with the OpenSUSE Tumbleweed platform. So I know that Arch has been on this for a while instead of the Grub bootloader. So I'm using systemd boot. And so, yeah, there's security implications to this and whatnot. And so it's nice to see. Hopefully more systemd boot integration stuff comes out. I know I was actually struggling. I use systemd and I wanted to be able to boot from my systemd boot menu into my Windows boot project, and I failed every single time because of security issues. I know it's possible. I know it's possible. I know it's a skill issue, but there weren't enough articles out there for me to actually figure out how to do it. And I haven't had the time to actually dig into it. Maybe I could figure it out, but yeah, so I'm excited for more people to start adopting this and for better documentation and for better for more people's experiences to be documented on it. ChatGPT did not help me out with this. There is a new open source Ente for your photos. If you need that, go get it. And then the last thing, man, I did say that this was the things that interest me in the order. This is probably going to take like a lot of people by surprise that this was the last. But Tailwind, open sourcing our progress on Tailwind CSS v4.0. I'm notoriously critical of Tailwind, but they have open sourced the engine that they're building that improved a ton of performance. So the Oxide, powered by Rust, by the way. It's built for speed. How did they build it for speed? Because they went from JavaScript to Rust. That's how you do it. Cool, Sergeant Pepper. We'll have to compile a list of databases to compare. I think that would be fun. So, anyways, Tailwind version 4 is coming out, is on the horizon. As you can see, they have a horizon picture right there. This is Tailwind. Tailwind v4 right there. This is Tailwind v5. It's just an idea, a nebulous cloud. Tailwind v6 is these stars out here. Not close yet. Not close. Don't get hopeful. It's far away. Super far away. Tailwind v4, though, is very close, right there on the horizon. Okay, I'm sorry. We're done with this analogy. It's out. You guys can see the progress. Have fun with that for all you dirty Tailwind enjoyers. Did you guys see anything else in the news for open source? I have never heard of Tiger Beetle before. Never heard of it before. It's becoming much more common for databases to allow you to swap out different components. So take something like Postgres, and this is not me hating on Postgres. Most of you know that I actually really like it. Postgres has a bunch of components in its stack, from a query optimizer to an API server to a data layer. And we can go through the 5 components of the standard stack, and that's fine and everything. But my goal is generally, like, Postgres, while you could swap one out, it's not really designed to swap them out easily. But more and more databases are making the effort to make it easier to swap those individual components out and say, okay, you don't want our query optimizer because you want to do something unique. Fine. Okay, you like all of the stack above that, but you don't want our data layer because you want something that's a little bit more geared towards fast inserts or fast reads or linearizability or whatever. And so I think that's becoming more common. Cool. All right, so let's talk about software engineering, computer programming news in general. Article that's out, we can actually review it. Now, I am notoriously against merge queues because my personal opinion is once you hit a merge queue and require a merge queue, you've probably done something wrong. It feels like a code smell to me. Now, merge queues are really useful if you've already found yourself in this situation. So there was a really cool article released this week. Yeah, this week. I just had to verify. All right, about how GitHub uses merge queues to ship hundreds of changes every day. Now, again, why I think it's a code smell is the reason that they have hundreds of changes is they have a single mono repo that gets hundreds of changes every single day. Hundreds of changes to a single repository. So again, this is where it feels like you have to have custom tooling, which is what they did. If you go through and read this, they had custom tooling to manage this mono repo. That's not the native Git experience. And this is again why my general opinion is mono repos feel really great when you're a small team, and as soon as you're not a small team, they feel really terrible. So yeah. So anyways, you can read this. I think it's an interesting discourse on the topic as a whole. Merge queues are excellent. Absolutely. Yes, Russell, times are out of sync again. I started half an hour late just for the people that would be affected by it. I meant to give an announcement ahead of time, like days ahead of time, but I completely forgot that it was happening until my phone told me a different time than what was on my my stove. And I was like, oh crap, that's today. So anyways, sorry about that. Merge queues are excellent. So yes, Dirk, you also like mono repos, which is again why what I was saying is it seems like merge queues become a thing that you need when you start to get these really big mono repos. I think that this goes, I feel like this is how I actually don't love merge queues. Probably the first thing we've really disagreed on. I generally find if you need merge queues, you have too many developers working on a single thing. That's the biggest cause of it. That's generally my feeling, at least. And sometimes that's just unavoidable though, which in that case, if you have that problem, it's kind of like microservices. microservices are unavoidable at a certain scale. And once you get to that scale, it's just like, okay, well, how do we group these people into smaller things to keep them agile enough? And merge queues kind of feel like the same thing to me. They're really awesome when you hit this big scale, but they're also not awesome in their selves. Like just how you have to rationalize how the code and everything's going to work. It's this added layer on top of Git that you have to think about. So I guess that's how it works for me, where it's like, they're awesome if you require them. I don't think they're inevitable either, because I think you can keep the repos small enough, but that requires microservices. I don't know the right answer. I don't know. I'll have to think about it. Anyways, I thought that this was an excellent blog article on their journey. If you guys want to read it, one way or another, what your opinion is, I still think it's most excellent blog article on how GitHub used merge queues. They actually go through the whole story, like back in 2016. Nearly 1,000 pull requests were merging into their large monorepo, and they walk through the story of how they went from that to this really custom thing that they had with pipelines, and basically they used GitHub like no one else used GitHub, and then in 2020, how they decided that they really wanted to revamp how they did that, and kind of their whole journey. So I think it's a really good thing. Now, they also are releasing merge queues. We talked about this as for public repositories as well as enterprise. So if you're wanting to try to leverage merge queues, which I think actually merge queues might be really interesting for big open source repositories. We didn't have them in Kubernetes when I was contributing to Kubernetes. And, I think the merge queues could have really helped there, because Kubernetes has a bunch of people contributing to the same. It's a monorepo problem. And so there was basically this thing where, you'd get the looks good to me, you would rebase and you would merge, or they would try to merge. I think merge queues could actually help those large projects. So that's another great place where merge queues might be really helpful. So anyways. Something I saw, I haven't tried it. I don't know how good it is, but teachschool.dev is a free and open source platform to learn programming. So I always encourage us to learn something new. This looks interesting. And I'm super excited to see it. I'm super excited to see somebody else trying to help other people. And so that's out there if you want to. Teachschool.dev. So go check it out. All right. Just a quick FYI for all you guys sounding biased out there. This was an article I found online. I don't sit and preach my company news to you guys unless if it's out there and it's recommended to me. It's also a really great way so I don't ever have to worry about leaking information. I find articles. All right, so meet the real time. This is a small database nobody has really known about. When you tell them that you work for this company, people are like, oh, cool, what do they do? And they're like, oh, we're a database. And you're like, oh, really? Really? So if you want to learn more about this company, you can go learn more about how they're solving problems, leading India's explosive UPI growth. Cool database. It's a cool database. Nobody's ever really heard of it, but it's a cool database. You should go check it out. That guy's name is Srini. He's also a pretty cool guy. Anyways, there you guys go. All right, so Zama homomorphic encryption tech lands $73 million on a valuation of 400 million. I've been looking at homomorphic encryption, just trying to understand it better, and it's definitely an interesting topic. Now, it's used a lot in blockchains. Zama has some interesting ideas on how it could be used with AI, and so I've been watching it a little bit, and this is definitely an interesting thing. I love to see that it landed a lot of funding to see how they can expand and grow on their technology that they currently have. And so yeah, I'll be interested. Right now, again, it's mostly used in blockchain things. But we'll see. We'll see if it has cool implications. So yeah, I'm just watching, see how people start to use it. They definitely do interesting things with it in blockchain, but yeah. So this is something that we talked a while ago. Microsoft made an announcement that they were going to do this, but they're rebranding the CBL Mariner Linux distribution to Azure Linux. So as far as I understand, nothing major is changing about it, but this is the Linux distribution they maintain that they run and power Azure stuff with. So if you're running on Azure, you probably already knew this. At this point, they are starting to rename stuff. So they made the announcement and everything, but you can see that the Git repo and everything has been changed now. And so there's redirects now and whatnot. So as of this point, it looks like that's all coming together. And the last thing is that NVIDIA halts the use of CUDA on other platforms and lists new warnings in the EULA. This seems to be targeted to some companies that provide a translation layer from CUDA, allowing you to run your CUDA applications on platforms like AMD or Intel, and looks to be trying to basically stop things like Zulda from using CUDA. All right. That was my general software engineering news. I don't know if you guys had anything else. At this point, we just have cloud news. How's everyone doing? All right, we're going to talk about Azure first because Azure has something pretty cool. I've been critical on Azure and GCP about their lack of NVMe support. And even now with Azure, they only had 2, maybe 3 classes of VMs that actually have cloud news equals the weather. Oh no. Welcome to, wait, what's today's date? March 10th, 2024. I have a question. Do people in Europe say the 10th of March, 2024, or do they say March 10th? Because I know they write the date backwards, but do they say it that way? Do they say the 10th of March, 2024? They say 10 March? At least you're consistent. That's good. Okay, 10th of March. Okay, good. Consistent. Well, the day is the 10th. The month is March. I'm just going to have to JSONify it. The real fix here is just to put it in JSON. Day, month, and year in JSON. This is the fix. Structured data, everyone. This is why we don't encode it in fancy strings. We use protobuffers. It's fine. Just make sure it's structured. All right. So, welcome to the news, the weather. Let's talk about it. Now, I have been classically critical of both Azure and GCP for their lack of NVMe support. And while they do have some, it's usually limited and fewer options than AWS has in their VMs. And this really comes into play if you want to do any type of data intensive workload, especially things like databases. And that being said, there is a new public preview of new AMD based VMs with increased performance, Azure Boost, and NVMe support. This is a big one. So there's 3 new ones here. I'm not going to read these out. They're like DALSV6. Could they have come up with more confusing names? We don't think so. But you know what? We will try. If you're using the EASV6 version, what the garbage? Anyways, confusing names. But these are pretty cool machines. Now they compare the average vCPU performance to the previous DASV5 to the newer ones. But what I want to point out is this graph down here, which comes up with a little bit more interesting topics with the vCPU to memory ratio, as well as the local disks. So you actually get quite a bit if you're looking at the DALDSV6 and the DLDSV6. You're getting 600 gigabyte NVMe drives, which is pretty cool. You also get a 175. This is probably the boot drive. Not sure. Don't play around on Azure that much. But you're looking at quite a bit of IOPS for local disk storage, and that's pretty fantastic. Now, I know they also said that they upgraded the network attached storage for these as well to give you more IOPS, but we don't really care about network attached storage here, do we? Then you can see the same is here for the EADSV6, where it has these 600 gigabyte drives. So here, it's quite a bit of storage. Now you can see that the vCPUs go up to 96 on this with 364 gigs of memory. This feels a little low to me if you store a big index in memory, but they do have more memory intensive ones, and they also have more compute intensive ones if you're wanting something a little bit more intensive on the compute. Now, the one thing that I found, unfortunately, here is the compute intensive ones don't seem to have the direct disk attached, which is kind of sad. So if you're on the FAMSV6, yeah, I love saying these because they're so ridiculous. Just absolutely love these. Thank you, Azure, for giving me this content. I'm gonna start naming stuff like this, and you know what? I'm sure somebody's gonna pipe up and say, "Well, the F stands for freedom, and the A stands for AMD, and the M stands for measured, and the S," and it's like, oh, okay, great, don't care. Not at all. All right. So Azure had some other things, but none that were as big as this. There was the general availability of the service level agreements on the Azure Blob cold storage. So if you've been wanting to use that but have been waiting because there hasn't been a service level agreement on it, you can now get a service level agreement starting on August 10th. No. It was generally available on August 10th. But it's starting now, so you can get your service level agreement on it, which is actually kind of weird. I generally thought that they released their service level agreements. I thought that they released their SLAs when they went generally available, but it's been generally available for like 3/4 of a year now. So interesting. Another thing is the app service backup and restore over Azure Virtual Network. We've talked about this when it was released as a preview. So it's now generally available. Who knows if it has an SLA? Who knows? Really cool. I said that the virtual machines overshadowed this, but this is actually pretty cool. The public preview of Change Actor. So basically, this allows you to see the actor who made the change with which client and when and what the operation was that they did. So this can help you with your compliance and other regulatory needs when you're trying to prove that you can prove who did what and why and when. So this is actually a pretty cool. This is a pretty cool change. I think this is pretty cool, and hopefully more clouds bake this type of thing in where you don't have to do your own audit logs. That would be amazing. That would be amazing. And the last thing from Azure is Azure Function Support for Node.js 20 for all of you using Azure Functions. That's it. That is it from Azure. Did you guys see anything else in Azure? All right, in GCP, we had Memstore for Redis vector search and LangChain integrations for generative AI. So this is just add enhancements to their Redis competitor, their Memstore. That allows you to use LangChain integrations for your generative AI with it. Pretty cool if you're doing that. I don't know that many of us are doing that. Later this year, we want to do some AI stuff and learn some of that stuff. So we will be getting more into this in the future. And then the last thing was streamlined digital commerce with the ICN, the Integrated Commerce Network. So if you're into commerce and looking at this, I don't fully understand this, but they released an Integrated Commerce Network, which is basically Google's take on e-commerce. If that's your guys' cup of tea, go for it. I wasn't super interested, so I didn't have the time to read all of the. All right, this I think is huge for AWS. How many times have you played around with something and manually did stuff and got something working and then been like, oh crap, now I have to create a CloudFormation template or a Terraform script to generate it? Not anymore. Well, maybe just a little bit. But now you can generate AWS CloudFormation templates and AWS CDK apps from existing AWS resources in minutes. I think this is huge. I think that they should have had a press release about this. This is fantastic because I don't know how many times where I've had a team or myself who have done something and then we're like, oh, now we actually have to do that. Like we prototype something, we prove something works, and then we try to actually write out the CloudFormation template for it. And there's time and effort, or, you could do it with Terraform. This is awesome. This is awesome. It really is. I'm very excited about this. I think this is one of the best things that AWS has released recently. Another thing that they did was Amazon Cognito is now available in the Middle East. Now, I want to say that you shouldn't care about this. Why? You shouldn't use Amazon Cognito. That's why. Don't use Amazon Cognito. Amazon Cognito is one of the worst thought out authentication providers the world over. And I don't hold that back lightly. They have worked hard to save it multiple times, and it's never been saved. It's never been saved. It really is that bad, by the way. Straight up, Amazon shops don't even use it. They'll use something else, a third party, outside of AWS. It has some pretty striking limitations when you dig into it. We can get into that. Yeah. All right. That was it for my cloud news, my weather news. I'll have to come up with a weather voice to do that with that, like some slow jazz. No, maybe not jazz. I don't know. I'll have to listen to the weather station to get a good voice for that. Did you guys see anything else? I know last week Raj brought in a really great thing for GCP. So I want to encourage you all to bring your own news if you have something. I do miss things. I'm a fallible human. I haven't been replaced by robots yet. I do fail the prompts checking if I'm a robot, though. So that's how fallible I am. Not only am I a fallible human, I can't even pass the stupid robot tests. Done that live on stream many a time. All right. Well, with that being said, let me find somebody to raid. We have enough people. I should find somebody to raid. I want to say thank you all for coming and hanging out and providing content for the news. Russell, I know that you... Okay, I know, Russell, that you use Azure, or at least have used Azure. Do you understand what those naming convention is? Because, like, my goodness, it kills me. I got into that, and I was like... I couldn't come up with a naming scheme. Like, I'm sure that they actually mean something. I'm sure that, like, their names actually are like... It wouldn't surprise me. Like, that seems like a Microsoft thing to do, where it's like, oh no, each one of those actually stands for a specific thing. Like the third octet in is, means this, and it's actually like hexadecimal. But yeah, it's kind of raining letters, is what I feel like. They're almost like the last 5 digits of a UUID. It's interesting. Like, I was looking at this, and like, I almost thought that like, okay, so there's like this V6 at the end, which I'm assuming is the version, which is good and all, but some of them have a letter in between the V and the 6, which adds strangity to me. Yeah, the DAVS6. It's like, could you have screwed that up anymore? I don't know. I'm not sure. But now I'm more confused, because I thought that this was at least version 6 of the EAS. And this was version 6 of the EAVS. It just hurt me a little. It just hurt me a little. I know that naming's hard, and I know that I make fun of people with their naming, but when you have the FAMSV6, is that your FAMS? Like, I'm going to go talk about my FAMS server? I don't know. And then you have your false, the FALS V6. You want your false server? False V6? I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, I hope that naming's hard. I get it. I will try not to hate too much on the... Do you guys see somebody streaming that we should raid? Musum has his raids turned off. You know what? Okay. Go raid this person. It has to be an old school raid because he has raids turned off. But he's doing Rust. And if you like Rust, absolutely fantastic Ruster. So this person right here, random projects in Rust, go check out his stream. You know what? I'm gonna post this right here. Version Super 6. Go check out his stream. Can't rate him officially, but go for it. And thanks everybody for joining. I super appreciate your time, and I will see you guys Tuesday. Thanks, and have a fantastic week.